Mr. Albright?
Here.
Ms. McCall?
Here. Thank you. Just so you know, we have a little bit of a change to our team here tonight. Andrew Wheatley is out of town this week, and then Christina French fell ill today, so she went home, and I said, don't bring those germs back here. So she's home, hopefully getting better. And I wanted to introduce a colleague from our department. This is Dan Hudson. He's our Senior Director of Data and Assessment. So he's going to share with us some information tonight. So sounds good. Thank you. So do we want to go ahead and do the approval? So of the agenda, you should receive the agenda last week. So if anyone would like to make a motion to approve the agenda tonight, we can hear that.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Here, I'll just-
Oh, yeah, you do that. I'm still learning.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
Dr. Wider?
Yes.
Mr. Albright?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
Ms. Wells?
Sorry, I'm still learning the rules.
We'll get there. We're good.
And now we have to approve our minutes. So I also, actually, Mr. Zink provided those minutes a couple of weeks ago, right after our last meeting. So if anyone would like to make a motion for approval of the minutes from our May meeting.
So. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion about the minutes?
The only thing I would say is if you do look at it, you see anything didn't capture, just let me know. I'll fix it. It's no big deal. I'm doing the best I can.
Doing beautiful.
That's all of us. That's all of us.
That's the way it is.
That's the way it is, right?
Yeah, I'm not, it's not etched in stone. I can fix it. All right, so any other discussion? Ms. Wells?
Yes.
Dr. Wider?
Yes.
Mr. Albright?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. McCall?
Yes.
And I believe I didn't miss him. Yep, I did.
Yes, awesome.
Oh, Mr. Murray.
Mr. Murray.
Okay. All right, so thank you all for coming back for our second meeting. As you recall last time, we talked about having an every other month basis, but we talked about having one more meeting kind of quickly after that first one just to get the ball rolling on some things. So that's what this meeting is. And then at the end of it, we'll try to schedule something. I was thinking for August, doing the every other month kind of cadence. And we can plan out the whole year if you guys want to do that, but we'll get to that towards the end of the meeting. And then the agenda is going to be the format that I proposed last time that we'll follow every time. So every time we'll have the norms, approval of the agenda and minutes, the norms, and then kind of the proactive piece and the reactive piece that we talked about. And then the last part will always be any recommendations to the curriculum team. So that's something we can talk about every time. So after our discussions, we can kind of see where that goes. So I put our meeting norms up on that agenda, as I'll do each time, just to remind us of that piece. And we'll start with the proactive piece of the targeted curriculum overview. So last time we talked about what your priorities were as far as how we look at the curriculum piece proactively. We had a couple little discussion items, but nothing really jumped out as a place to start. But you guys had talked about the idea of like surveying the community or parents and getting some more input to kind of give us some direction. So we talked about a community conversation, a survey, or a thought exchange. So what I did was brought some information back on all those things so we can talk about those. So the first one, there's a handout that you should have in your packet. Looks like this. This is from Betsy Fuller, and she's our director of PR. And she has kind of given me some of the ideas about a thought exchange. I don't know if any of you have participated in one. It's not exactly a survey. It asks you a question and you put your answer, and then other people can rate your answers. So they'll go in and thumbs up things, and it kind of rises to the top, the things that got the most thumbs up on. So we could use that format. That's a tool that the district does have, and we use it pretty often, so I think our families and community members are pretty familiar with the format, but it's up to you guys if we want to go that way or do it more traditional like SurveyMonkey or Google Form kind of survey. So here's what, at the top, she said that just things to think about. So it's meant to be an open-ended question, so it gives people the ability to type whatever response they want on those. And then the algorithm, it says, helps to make sure that thoughts are seen as with equal numbers as much as possible. So it kind of divvies out what you're seeing of other people's information in an equal way according to an algorithm. And then it says you can include survey questions in the beginning to gauge what relationship people have. So you could say, what's your relation to Lakota? And so we could sort information by that answer. So that's just the overall gist of using that tool. But then the bottom is where she kind of put out some, because I said, could you give me some example of some questions that you think would be, good open-ended questions around this topic. So she put together a list of questions. So I'll give you just a minute to look through those. We could create our own, we could pick some of these, we could do none of these. So kind of take a second and read through those and then we can talk about them.
What is the result
What
of
does it look
this?
like?
Yeah. What is there like a printout or a?
So it's a live system, so she can kind of pull data and sort it in several different ways. But it'll usually say, here's the top rated comments, and then down from there. So you'll be able to see what the comment was and how many people starred it, and then the comments will go down. So you could kind of see some priority, but it kind of feeds off each other. So the unfortunate thing about it is if nobody makes the comment about, whatever it is that you're wanting to say, then it never gets in the system. So, and you would kind of have to put things as individual comments to see how they rate differently. So if you have 3 or 4 thoughts that you wanted to share, I would put them as 3 or 4 different comments.
If somebody writes a paragraph with 3 thoughts in it, the whole paragraph gets
1 rated.
budgeted.
Which might mess it up because some people might say, oh, I don't agree with all parts of that, so I don't want to star it. So I would just recommend that people put thoughts down. You know what I mean?
Can the timing of the comments also influence how many people have had a chance to look at it and possibly rate it?
I think possibly, but she says that the algorithm is supposed to prevent taking advantage of the timing, I guess you would say. So I don't know exactly how it works, but that's kind of the selling point of their program is how this algorithm works and provides you responses at a fair rate, I guess you would say. But yes, if you're the first one to complete it, you're not going to have anything else to complete. So we have, in these times we've used it, reminded people to go back in and look again just to see what's been added since you last. You're coming up there. Every time I've done it, I thought, I can't remember what my comment was. And, sometimes I can find it and go, oh yeah, I think that was it. But then you can see what other people are responding to your comment. Diane, did you have something?
Yeah, a few questions. One is, how does it get promoted? And then the second is, it's summertime, how do we engage the community to even pay attention
Yes.
to it right now?
Yep. So promotion we could take care of through all of our channels. We could tweet and Facebook and blast out a message, use our district webpage, those kind of things. Timing is something we can talk about because I do agree with you that probably July is not the best time to engage families about this conversation. So we could talk about doing it right at the end of August, right after school starts. We could talk about, launching time is our decision.
What's the school start date?
It's the 16th maybe of August. Is it?
That's a Wednesday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
correct.
So if they had a few weeks
into the school year, they might actually notice other things too, and then could add to that. I mean, yeah, and, go ahead, Regina.
No, I'm not in disagreement, but statistically speaking, and when you guys have done surveys in the past, has there been is there a significant difference between who answers in the summer and when school starts?
I don't think we've put anything out in the summer.
Okay, that makes sense then. That was just gonna be like, if we're waiting, I was just looking for a while, but
Yeah.
I think it makes more sense to wait until August.
I think we try to keep our communications kind of lower during the June, July pieces, but, so I don't know, but I could ask to see if they got any results that way. The second thing I'll bring up before we can come back to this conversation, is the community conversation piece. I don't know if any of you have been a part of those, but we have kind of a, what's Jeff's title? He's a mediator, right?
Jeff
Like
Stack.
a mediator? So we have a mediator of sorts that we use to facilitate these conversations, and they have kind of a schedule, and each one has a topic. The thought being, if we did do a community conversation, we could use the thought exchange as the beginning and then invite everybody to the community conversation so that they could, kind of springboard by seeing everybody's comments online, and then could come in person and have a conversation facilitated by him. So, and actually Betsy suggested that if we did do a community conversation, maybe mid to late September, because that will be after curriculum nights happened at the buildings. So then it would be fresh in parents' minds. So that's a thought too. So we can go back to the thought exchange. I know I jumped forward, but Diane, did you have something else about
You
that?
answered my question because I was going to ask when I was going to say open house, but the term now is
Yep.
curriculum night, so, yeah.
And for the younger buildings, we have open houses kind of before school, and the high schools do too with their schedule pickups and things like that. But then they have curriculum nights, usually like last week of August, first week of September, where you come in and learn about what your child's learning. So it's more curriculum focused. So I would say it's more relevant to do it after those nights than just the open house night.
Is the community welcome? Would we be welcome to
That's a good
curriculum night?
I can ask that. I don't know what the standard has been about that, but let me ask that question. Do you know?
I do not.
But good question.
So when you say the community is welcome, like we or anybody can walk in any building, in any classroom, and kind of just sit in on the teacher's session and get the curriculum night, or is it done? Because this is I'm still learning how curriculum night goes. Or is it in the auditorium and everybody shows up? Like, how does this work?
Usually there's a portion, and every building does it a little differently, but usually there's a portion there that the whole group is in the gym, for example, and the principal is speaking. But typically in the older buildings and younger too, the parents follow their child's schedule. So that would be the only thing, is you kind of be free floating if you didn't have a child's schedule to follow. But we could look into how that could be done if you didn't have a child at the building, and just so you can hear some of the
I mean,
information.
even as a teacher, like if you come in and sit in my classroom, that would be like, not that I wouldn't want you there, but I would want questions, and parents might be wondering why a person who doesn't have a kid there
Yes.
is sitting in the classroom. Like, it can make things uncomfortable and not go smoothly.
Sure.
Kind of, not that they wouldn't go over what they needed to, but it's gonna jolt in a sense of how people feel. And I'm not just talking about the teacher, I'm talking about the parents too.
Everybody.
Because I would
Yeah,
be concerned,
sure.
it's like, why is this adult in this classroom and my kids here? Like, I don't know how I feel about it.
Yep. And sometimes you may not even know. I mean, they don't kind of take roll call in those
Right.
typically. But yes, I think that's a good, valid concern too. So let me talk to our,
Because in the lower grades, I think they sit at their child's desk.
Yes.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they sit at their child's desk, and even when I did the high school, because I did do that last year, I sat at my child's desk, and that's how the teacher associated me with my son.
Right. And that's how they kind of knew who came
Yeah,
and who didn't.
yeah, that's how they marked who came and who didn't.
Okay. I can ask that question though, and we can have some dialogue about that. It's a good question.
I wonder if through part of our information gathering with surveys or community conversations, if we try to take the temperature of, is there an appetite? Have
To
some
do
sort
that.
of community curriculum, something for
Maybe that could be
Your
something on the
student.
exchange, possibly.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like maybe the purpose Diane you had in mind isn't really served at current. So
Yeah.
there could be something like that. Maybe.
My
I'm
thought-
making assumptions.
Right, I mean, my thought was simply just information and learning. And if this is a time when the teachers are presenting the curriculum, we've got a lot, we're gonna have a lot of data in other ways, but
Another.
why, it's not a condemnation, it's just a question. Would we be welcome to sit in on those conversations, as particularly in our role as, the curriculum advisory?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna play devil's advocate. And you got people walking around seeing where every teacher is, where every door is, where every exit is that don't have kids.
Just the safety piece of
Yes,
it.
the safety piece of it. as
But
well.
I do think there's a,
But I think there's a need, so I'm
Yeah.
kind of like on both sides. I'm not.
Well, if I were a guest, my expectation would be that there would be a pre-screening, that there would be a whatever else for me to be a guest. I'm not expecting I'm just gonna walk in with everybody else.
Okay.
It's a question about, would we be welcome? And
Okay.
you're saying, let me look at it.
Mhm.
And then the other piece of that question, what would it take for us to be welcome?
Okay.
Are you
Okay.
saying just as the curriculum team, or are you saying as anyone in the community could?
I'm
go?
asking us,
Right.
if we would be
Okay.
welcome, was
Oh,
my
okay, just the
question.
five
Would
of
we
you
be
versus-
welcome?
I
Okay.
think me and you took as
That's what I thought.
everybody.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
said, if it was everybody in the community, I think we'd have some
Yeah, that's how I took it, so I
capacity
apologize.
concerns.
How would they typically verify that these were parents or weren't parents that came in?
They don't.
I mean, they don't,
Yeah,
other
they
than
don't.
sitting in your
Yeah.
child's
Yeah.
seat, yeah. So it's not a school hours event, so they don't have all the
It's not
background
as-
checks and all that going on, because it's outside school hours. But that's a good question for the five of you, and we could even
I'll be at one
take it a
Sunday,
different.
No wonder.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of you are, so,
Right.
yeah,
I'll be there anyway. but-
yeah.
I mean, even to the extent of, in my situation, I'm just speaking, I wouldn't mind whatever that means, do I need to go through
Okay.
a security check? Will I have to wear a badge that says
Or we
visitor?
Put
Whatever
together
that,
a schedule for you to
for
follow.
me to
or
follow,
Okay.
something like that.
something to
Yeah.
that
We
effect.
could,
I
we could
mean,
look at that.
not trying to make work, it's just another
Right.
way of kind of gathering from the ones who are actually,
Presenting.
I better
Teaching.
understand now. so-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize.
No, but those questions though, I mean,
Okay.
that's helped me understand
problem is
too.
solved.
Yeah.
Michael said I could be his guest as this.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
I like that. And probably between all of us, we have all the different grade levels.
That's probably true.
So, okay, good question. So going back to the thought exchange, are there any questions that stick out to you as good or some better than others?
How many are typically in the thought exchange? 3, 5?
I think it's been like two to three
Yeah.
questions from what I've seen.
And that was gonna be my question, how many questions are?
And it could be more, but I think people kind of lose, because if you do it later,
Right.
there's a lot of comments to filter through, so it takes a long time for one comment. So I think 2 to 3 would probably be reasonable.
These
And
all
we could
seem to
create
be
other ones too.
Variations on the same theme of what are we doing
Yeah.
well, what are we doing well, do you have questions? I was wondering if we could keep it simple and just ask the three things separate. What's going well, what's not going well, do you have
That's
what do you
good.
have questions about?
Yeah, that was one of my comments, is that they're all complex, which gets a little bit difficult to sort through.
So what are we doing well? What were the other two? What do we need to work on, or what do we need to do better?
However you want to word that, right?
Okay.
And then maybe a third one could be, what questions do you have about
Oh, yeah.
the curriculum?
What is the end goal for us with this thought exchange? I just want to understand what we're.
From my perspective, and you guys tell me if you disagree, from my perspective, it would give us as a team some direction as to when we conduct the meetings and do the proactive review part, that we could see if there's areas that are coming up as concerns. So that we could have some direction guided by the community to say, okay, let's look at fourth grade sessions, or, something like that,
Right.
because
Direct
several
focus.
comments came up about that. Or we might see that there's just like a huge span of comments and not a trend, and we could make a decision on that.
No, I can't remember at the beginning of the surveys, it's been a while since. does it ask the grade that your child is in?
I
If
think,
you're a parent?
I think we can make it
Oh, okay,
do that.
yeah.
So she said that we could ask some like demographic kind of stuff. We could
Good.
say, are you a parent?
Right.
What grade is your child in? That kind of thing. So that we can sort
Yeah, that
by
would be
the
easy.
responses. But it is all anonymous, I should say too.
Can you put building, so that can help too?
Oh, yeah.
Building, grade, and then role, like parent, community member.
Is that too specific though? If we're looking for,
Well, that will
Anonymity.
only display for us right on the back end, not
Yeah.
when people are viewing.
Yeah.
comments.
So what we put out to the community could be a little more general in nature. But let me talk with Betsy and see
Mm,
how
you're saying that
specific
just
we
by,
can
like,
get.
building grade levels, like LACC, elementary,
Yeah, by grade bands.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
like by the, yeah.
That's good.
So if we do it by grade bands, but each school is pretty much a curriculum. If it's like elementary,
Mhm.
okay, all right.
So everything that we do is going to be based on the state standards. And, you know, there's variations of how teachers present those standards, but it's going to be based on the same standards. And we do give them scope and sequence kind of documents, so hopefully everybody's generally doing things in the same order and stuff. But day to day, it's going to be.
So kind of thus far, what we're talking about is maybe doing the thought exchange. That'll help kind of distill, prioritize from a community perspective. And then from there, we're thinking of the community conversations, which will allow the community then to even further expand on those thoughts.
Yep.
And then that will help us in prioritizing what we're going to be doing.
And usually when we do community conversations, there's one or two, maybe three questions that we kind of structure the conversation around. And we could look at the comments from the thought exchange to develop the questions. Or we could use the same questions. And it is a little different when you're discussing with people versus making comments and rating them.
So when are we hoping to send this out then? August?
So if, it's up to us, but if my suggestion would be that we did this maybe towards the end of August, and then a community conversation in mid to late September to allow people to go to the curriculum nights, see the thought exchange, and then comment. What do you guys think about that?
Would it be possible, I know this is jumping ahead on our agenda, but when we look at scheduling our meeting in August, could we try to do it once responses have been collected?
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
we have something to
absolutely.
review there.
Smart thinking. Okay, so thought exchange, August. Late August. Community conversation, mid to late September. And then our meeting can be after. Is everybody okay with that?
So just for clarity, I want to circle back. So what are the questions?
So the ones I have written down so far are, what are we doing well? What can we do better? What questions do you like the way those are worded?
Just as long as it's including the topic is curriculum.
yeah.
Yeah, it needs to
I like
have a
the
little.
lunch.
We're doing well.
I like
Chicken
recess.
nuggets.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, good point. So focus.
I think, I like the questions, but I think they need to be doctored up a little bit, so they are a little bit more, what do you like about the curriculum as far as you?
So it gives more direction.
Yeah,
Okay.
your child.
Say
Yeah.
word better. Those better.
But overall, yes.
So what I'll do is I'll get with Betsy and have her wordsmith these with me a little bit and then send them out to you guys for approval before we would put the thought exchange together. Does that sound okay? And then, oh, go ahead.
And I know, I'm okay with those, but since she's the wordsmith, because I am not a wordsmith, if she makes suggestions like that we do make don't, like certain things are changed, would you share that with us before then? Okay.
I'll make sure
Because it might
whatever
not-
you see is
yeah.
what goes
Because she
out.
has more experience in what I'm thinking should be said, but I don't know if that's gonna be conveyed and how people
Right.
are gonna react to
Okay.
it, so.
Yeah, and I'll get that back to you guys soon and well before
Okay.
the August piece so that we
We
can
have a meeting in August,
have
too.
some, yeah, so that we can have some dialogue well before it goes out.
Typically, how long is a thought exchange open?
I think they've typically done 1 to 2 weeks. But again, that's up to us. She sets the dates based on what we ask for. And we could even open it mid-August and close it late August. And she can help us communicate that out so that, because a lot of people will be seeing stuff in August. You know, they'll be back on their computers and checking websites and stuff.
So we're thinking people would have more questions after curriculum night to go to the community conversation, or then to bring
Well,
up in this?
I mean, if they actually had questions, I would hope they'd ask their teachers at curriculum night, but if they have bigger community-based questions, or what do we think about this kind of questions, that they would bring them to the community conversation.
And I think too, if I'm wrong, please let me know that we're trying to do this, because there may be people who have kids who are older who have concerns younger, so we're just getting a general overview of the district.
Right.
So they may not have concerns if the child's in 7th grade, but they were like, this didn't work for my kid in 3rd grade.
Mhm.
So they may be able to provide us some information as well. Like, that would be the successes and the fails. I'm thinking, so I would think people wouldn't answer just on that grade, but the curriculum night is.
Yeah, I agree. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'll work with Betsy to get those worded a little better, send them out for an email to you guys. Focus on a thought exchange to happen mid to late August. Then have our meeting to review the results, and then the community conversation in late September.
So
That's all right.
I'm gonna ask another. If she
Yeah,
closes it in late August, is she gonna be able to get everything ready for our meeting? What's the time frame? Because I don't.
So from what I've seen, it's pretty
Okay.
quick.
Okay.
You know, she can see the results in real time. and
Okay, so she's probably
she
doing
can
it
drop
overtime.
down. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
It doesn't take her time to kind of corroborate everything and put it
Trying
all
to be
together.
considerate of that, because I'm like, it would.
It's
Seems
not
like it
like
would take a
test-
long
It's
time.
not like test
Yeah,
scores,
so-
right? Yeah. So, okay. So we'll look at that kind of timeline. Do you want to well, let me get with Betsy about the date for the community conversation too, because I don't know that we could set that. I think we'd have to do that.
Would it
because-
just be one, or would it be a couple sprinkled around? So sometimes it's like one this week and one in 2 weeks.
Well, what I was going to, there's 2 board members that kind of oversee the community conversation, and they set up the topics and the dates. So we have to kind of get in their calendar,
Okay.
and hopefully they let us have, you know, a little bit of say on when we do it. But Betsy coordinates with them, so she can figure that out with them. I'll let them know what we prefer and see if that works for them.
The next committee meeting's in August for the community
Okay.
engagement committee.
Okay.
It's really called that? Community
Mhm.
Engagement Committee?
Mhm.
Community? Okay.
Take a minute.
Redundant.
Well, we're a team committee here. Community Curriculum Advisory Team Committee. We like lots of energy. Okay, so as the last part of kind of our proactive agenda tonight, last time we brought some information just about curriculum in general. We looked at state standards, you looked at testing blueprints, you looked at some samples of our curriculum documents, all those different things. And one of the things I took away from the conversation was comments that you guys were saying, yeah, we like more information, you know, keep bringing us learning pieces. So I thought tonight would be a good time to introduce Dan, as he is our data guru, and for him to kind of walk us through some things about the state report card, so you can understand all those categories and ask questions and those kind of things. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Dan. He did give a handout.
Yeah, there is a handout in there. It says 21, 22 report card overview. The report card has changed from what it started as. It's changed a lot. It has changed, yes, in the last 2 years. And last year was the first year they started doing the STAR system. And if you see on the first page, this is where we were last year, and there are 6 different components to it. College, career, workforce, and military readiness. It's reported right now, but it's not going to be graded or part of the report card until at least the 24-25. That's at the bottom. So it's basically the first 5. And the way it breaks up the components, you get stars for each one of the different areas. For achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation, and early literacy, you get a certain amount of stars on different criteria. And then last year they did not give an overall score, which they, in the end, it's like before this it was A, B, C, or D. A, B, C, D, F. Now it's stars, and they'll give you an overall grade. And it breaks out by this. Achievement and progress are always going to, depending on what you're on, I'm looking at the district, achievement and progress are always going to be the same percentage of the overall score, and however many other components you have are broken up evenly between them. So the district has all of the areas. The high schools have 4 of the 5. The junior highs have 3. The 3-6 buildings have 4, and the K2 buildings have, 2, gap closing and early literacy. And like I said, the overall rating will be reported this year on the report card, and they'll show it there. Even though last year a lot of outside agencies, meaning the newspapers, used this to figure out what everybody's score would have been, and they reported it. The Columbus Dispatch loves to, and they do it all the time. Okay, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So if the newspaper reported, it wasn't put out by the state, it was their interpretation of it that was put out that everybody was reading?
Correct.
So it was not the state report card, it was their interpretation?
Yes.
Okay, that makes
These
sense.
were put out, the stars were put out by the state, okay? But the overall score was not put out by the state, it wasn't on there.
Okay,
And that's also going to be a star rating?
That's also the star.
they use the star rating, which mimics this, but they're totally separate.
Well, they use all of this data
Oh, okay.
to get to the overall star.
And I think the point was of not putting out the overall rating was to get districts used to
Used
the
to,
new
yes.
way of reporting. So it was kind of like, we're not gonna hold this totally against you
Right.
for the first year,
Mhm.
but people figured it out anyway. Yeah.
Well, they gave you all
Well,
the
yeah.
documentation
Yeah.
of how to do it.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to go over each one of the components. And then the key thing, one of the biggest change, I'm going to go with the achievement component. One of the biggest changes they've done is they used to report how many different tests that you got 80% or better on. 80% of the students passed it, which is a proficient level. And they used to do that. That was your score. And in the district, there was 24 different tests, and you got a rating. If you got 80% or better, you got it. What they're doing now is, in my opinion, much fairer. Overall, they're doing what is called a performance index. And for each one of the different levels, you get different points. So limited, which is the lowest level, actually the lowest level is a kid that was supposed to take the test that didn't take the test. They get no points for it, but it still counts against you. Limited is the lowest level, and you get 0.3 for each one of those kids. Basic, you get 0.6. Proficient, you get 1. Accomplished, you get 1.1, and so on, all the way up to 1.3 for Advanced Plus. And Advanced Plus is students who are taking, in our district, in the lower levels, it's math, they're taking, if they're a third grader taking fourth grade math. Fourth grade, if you're taking that, you get more points for that. You actually move up a level. If you were accomplished, you get advanced. If you were advanced, you'd get, it would report that way to the kid, to the student, they'd still see advanced on theirs. But as the district figures out the performance index and the state figures it out, they would get the next level. So if a kid was accomplished, they would get advanced, which is 1.2 points for each one. So then they put all of this together. So they take how many kids got accomplished, multiply it by 1.1 and so on, add it all up, divide by your total number of students plus the ones that didn't take it. So the ones that get zeros hurt you. And it's many different reasons why they would do it. And then they divide it out. So a perfect score is 120. Well, perfect score would be 130 if every kid was advanced plus, but that's not it. But a perfect score normally would be 120 because 1.2 by every kid gives you 120. Well, that's still unfair because nobody in the state is even going to approach that unless you were a gifted school and you were truly had all you had was gifted. And I don't know many schools, well, doesn't CPS have one?
I mean,
That's
some
it.
magnet
Yeah,
schools.
some magnet
exist,
schools.
yeah.
Have a gifted school. So what they do is they take the top 2% of the whole state, they take the average of the top 2% score, and you're going to get, last year was 107.2, which is a lot lower than 120. And you would take your score divided by that and you get a percent of what that score is. Then it goes 90, 80, 70, 60 for the stars. And we were at 83%, that's why we got 4 stars for achievement. Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
Truly convoluted. Wait till I get to early letters there.
So it means that our district score was 83% of the top 2%.
Ours was 83% of 107.95,
Which came from the top 2%.
which came from the average top 2% of all the districts in the state of Ohio. Their performance index.
So I have a question.
Yes.
As a school district, I know that the limited and basic, we have some kids that, you know, like you said, they go from the very advanced to those who aren't
Yes.
doing the best they can. or whatever.
Exactly.
So those ones that are doing the best they can, they're taking the same test as the advanced one, but the curriculum does not match where they are. Do they factor that in?
Where there's 2 different types of tests. There's an alternative assessment for the 1% of kids that you would see that are in our units. And not all of those kids even, some of them have to take this, depending on,
Yeah.
there's a whole
Oh,
flow
right.
chart for them to go through,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And those kids have a separate test, but as you were saying, the kids that we have that are doing Title I, that are in reading intervention, that are doing all those, they're still taking these same tests, yes.
So there's no consideration.
Well, that's the next part. And the consideration before, it was either you passed or you didn't. At least you get something for this.
Okay.
And this is looking at kids overall. You're just trying, if I have a kid that comes in and is predicted limited, and I move them up just the basic, they still haven't passed, but you have moved them. And that's what we talk to our buildings about. Move them from where they are. Okay? And that's, when we get to the progress report, part of this component, that's what that whole thing is. That's all about taking them where they are and at least hitting where they're projected to be for the test. And that's all the value-added stuff that it comes from. Okay?
You want to explain value added?
I'm going to get to, when I get to progress, I'll
Gotcha.
explain it.
Sorry.
So now the students that count for the district and the buildings are students who are enrolled and are continuously enrolled from the Friday of the first week of October all the way through, it's mid-April when they take the test. It's not when they take the test, but the state has 2 arbitrary dates, one for ELA and one for math, that they use for the, and if the kid is there with you the whole time, he counts for you. If the kid comes in the second week of October, they will not count on your report card. They will count for the state, but they won't count on your report card. If a kid comes, moves out of the district and then comes back, they won't count. It's all of that, and then it takes all of that into consideration. Or a kid who moves from out of the country to our district and shows up in January, which happens a lot. It seems to be the beginning of the year. We get a lot of new enrollees, and it's not just, it's from everywhere. Okay. All right, and then that breaks down to what the star rating is. It's 90, 80, 70, 60 for achievement, or 90, 80, 70, 50, and then below 50 is 1 star. All right, and so the kids that, and we do still have a lot of kids that opt out of taking the test. They can, they counting it, they count as a 0.
Oh, wow.
Because they're supposed to take the test, but parent says they don't want to take the test, and that's fine. We explain to them what the consequences are if they don't. Like, there are big consequences for the students in 3rd grade and in high school for graduation.
But that's still, it lowers our.
It lowers the overall,
Right.
yes.
And is there a big trend in people now opting out of taking
There was
the
a-
test?
There was a huge trend when what was it, 4 years ago, when, do you remember the park assessment?
Oh.
Way back in? That was, I had to code all these, and there was like 650 different kids in the district that you had to go through on just one test, and that was for several tests.
So that hurts the score significantly.
But in that case, they didn't count against us because that was the 80%
Okay.
on the report card.
Okay.
But,
Now they do.
oh yeah, now they do. Yes.
You probably need to share that with parents, because I don't think they understand that. They want the school to perform, but if you pull all those kids, because a lot of those kids that are probably being pulled are kids that would perform well on the test.
Yes, because when they get to high school, they have,
Yes.
when they get to the different, but
Yeah.
I can say it's less than 100 total tests
Ooh, that's
during the
good.
year
Okay.
is what we have. And 100 total tests, every kid takes at least 2. And if you're in high school, you can take up to 4 at a time.
Okay. Okay.
Does that affect the monies that we get from the state?
No.
Our funding, I was gonna attempt to answer a question, but maybe Adam should answer it, but our funding is based on attendance, so.
Yeah.
It, they're
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
Not so much.
Just
Yeah.
curious.
Okay, so now this is what you were asking about. The next component is the progress component. And progress is all on value added. And what a value added does is it takes every test the kid has ever taken. You need at least 3 tests. I cannot tell you the formula because I don't know the formula. I tried. It's one of those patented, protected, copyrighted ones that you can't, because Battelle for Kids is a big thing. Especially in Columbus because they have Battelle centers. But it takes the kid all of what they have, all the tests they have, and it makes a profile of that student. And there's sufficient a number of tests in the state of Ohio that they can then, they'll have a profile of me, of what my test score is, and then every other kid that has the same kind of profile from past years did this kind of average score. So that's my projection. All right, so if I projected to be limited at this specific number, and my growth was projected to be this much for the next year, as long as I hit that same number, 0 counts as, 0 is actually a good number. 0 means that I met 1 year's growth in 1 year's time. Okay? And then if you get a +1, that's basically 1 standard deviation. And then a +2 is 2 standard deviations. And they got different colors for each one of these different things. And you can go on and look on the EVOS site on the state of Ohio. And it has all these reports and everything. So that looks at all the kids, and a kid is not going against the score, they're going against themselves. So this is how they achieved against themselves. Okay? And that, once again, I can't figure that out, but I tried once. I mean, because I know the definitions of all the things, I'm like, okay, but no. So with these scores, we get them in August is the first time we know. At the end of August, they drop all the progress. And the progress scores are in several different areas. It's for all of the different tests, as you can see. And there's 2 different parts. There's the growth index, which is how much total growth that group made. So let's say the overall group grew 2, and the standard deviation was 2.4 something, or the standard error was 2.4. They divide the 2, and you get your effects. Not your effects, you get your index. Index, and that's where the 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's where that number comes from. They put them all together, and that's how they get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the stars. And this is something. This is from what I see here. If your performance index goes up, that's because you're moving kids to the right on that. This normally goes up. Okay. And I can see us doing much better in this this year for this, but I won't know.
And I would think that, I keep on saying this,
Yeah.
COVID also.
COVID,
because
well.
they don't take into consideration, like, the you against you.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And this normalizes that because of COVID, this is how the kid has been doing. And it's going to predict doing all that because everything was much lower this year.
Okay.
As far as what kids are projected to get.
Okay.
That they haven't been in the last 2 years. Okay, next one. This is the truly.
One more question.
Yes, go ahead.
Move on. We talked a little bit about this at our last meeting.
Yes.
Is it a safe assumption to think about it, the higher the achievement score for the district, the harder it becomes to get a higher progress score, or is that not a good way to think about it?
If you think about the higher the student, your gifted students are the hardest group to grow because they're getting this test score right here. There's not much room up here for them to go. Okay? I mean, we have quite a few kids that get perfect scores on tests. So they have to be in that range for the next year within those number of points. And a lot of those, and you'd see teachers that have individual will get a 0, which is great for them. Because if you keep those gifted kids at the level they're gifted, I mean, like when you're looking at overall achievement scores and you're looking at, because I figure out the performance index for the different grades and everything else, you can see the gifted, there should be nobody that's basic or limited. Very few that are proficient, most should be accomplished overall. And if there is an issue there, then we got to look at what's going on.
But that monumental achievement of keeping all of those advanced students at advanced wouldn't necessarily translate into a 5-star rating here.
In progress, no. If you kept them all there, yes, it might. But it's keeping them all there. Because we have probably 30% of our students are in honors or advanced. We have 40% overall that are gifted. But that's going lower because what they were identified in K1, that test is changing, we can't use that anymore. So, and that was over-identified at that level. You hit 95 percentile once, then you're gifted. Am I correct? Ex-gifted coordinator.
Gifted forever.
Gifted once, you're gifted forever.
Yeah.
And then they may drop to the 52nd percentile every other time they've taken it. It just happened the one time. Yes?
How quickly do the teachers and does the school district get, and this might be really nitty gritty, I'm not trying to be, how quickly do the teachers and the district get the results to be able to make adjustments and apply the feedback?
The result, which results?
So let's say that the first set of achievement results.
The day after we get they are all rostered in the what is called the CRT, which teachers, it's the same system that they go give the test in.
So they have the results the next day?
They have, not the next day.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, all right, so they took the test, the first week of May was when the last tests were given for ELA, math, and science. Okay, math, science, and social studies. ELA is taken right at the end of March to the second week of April. The following, not 1 week, but 2 weeks after they finished that, so the third week of May, that Monday, all the math, science, and social studies scores were there in the teachers. They could look them up on their roster and figure out how they did, and it breaks them up. It breaks it down by question. It breaks it down by standard, how the kids did on each one of the standards. It's absolutely a very, very big improvement from what it used to be.
So then they can take theoretically time over the summer to make those adjustments for the next year.
Yes.
Okay.
And then ELA comes out 2 weeks later. ELA is now, it's gotten a lot quicker because we used to not get anything till the end of June. And teachers were off on vacation and not thinking about this until, but they've gotten a lot quicker because now all the essays and everything else is machine scored. It's not a human reader anymore. They do cross-checking on, they take samples out and they have still human readers do some of them, but most of the thing. And that's part of the reason we do something called the readiness assessment, which is the actual test questions that are released, that they put in test form, that are actually like a test for the kids. Same system, same way they take the test, and the kid will get here's what your score is on this readiness assessment. If this were the test, this is what just like a 701, it is the same scaled scoring system and everything else. And it breaks down where the different parts of what the kids have. And on those, they can hit like question number 4, hit the top, and it actually shows what the kid answered. And it machine scores them, and the way the machine scores it gives the English teachers and the reading teachers. This is how they actually score the test. And we did much better on reading and writing this year, especially the writing part of it, because they saw how things were scored. And it's not just, there used to be where you rewrote the prompt, wrote a middle paragraph, wrote the last paragraph. That's the way it used to be taught for them to write for the essays on the exam. You do that, you'll get 0 points anymore.
Yeah,
You'll
one
get-
of the biggest strategies we used to use for extended
Yeah.
writing, we found out was hurting. How the way they scored them was actually hurting. Like, we always asked them to restate the question, and they didn't want that, So we've had to
So you didn't know the
adjust.
criteria, so
Yeah,
right.
they were impacting you because that no criteria was given.
Yeah, if you use more than 10% of the prompt, 10% of the prompt in your
Okay.
response, then
And we were telling kids to do, before knowing this, we were saying, restate the question, and they were then putting more than 10% in their
Right.
response, and it was,
and if you don't use items from the story that you're defending what your question is, because there's two different types there's an opinion type of essay, and then what's the other one? Argument. That's it. Yeah,
Okay.
okay? All right, so gap closing. See all the yellow boxes on gap closing?
Yep.
Those are all the different categories. Different categories are gifted performance index, and it's figured the same way. Whenever it says performance index is figured the same way. This one is just for gifted students. And their gifted max score was 120.28, was what they had, what they were measuring against from last year. And then gifted progress is just like we talked about. Progress would be value added, but only gifted. All of this used to be in anywhere you see progress here. This all used to be in the progress part of it. It's out of that. And then gifted identification and served. Identification is, we have no problem with that. Served, we're getting much better with that, just the way we have changed the program. And this is, you're writing webs for kids, you are doing all the other stuff to count as being served. Graduation rate points, we don't have any issues with that, we're usually above on that one. Chronic absenteeism is, okay, let me get this. Chronic absenteeism, if a kid misses 10% of the school year, they count, misses 10% of the school year, they count as being chronically absent. So, however many of those 10% that you have divided by the total number is what's your chronic absenteeism rate. And that goal changes every year. It gets lower and lower. All the goals on all of these change from year to year to year.
So that 10% a lower number.
Well, no. 10% stays the same, but what you have to hit,
the number of kids.
the number of kids, like right now, I think it's at 20.2%.
Yeah.
If 20.2% of your population is absent more then you don't get the points. And it's either all or nothing. You either get, most of these are fives, zero or
And
five.
I'll add into this, this is a newer one,
Yes.
and this is excused or unexcused. So
I was
this
gonna ask
is
you that.
going to doctor's appointments, tardies.
Those who are
I'm
chronically
sick.
ill and on home services,
Mhm.
they count in that too?
Home
So
instruction
if
is-
they're home instruction, no, because
Okay.
they're counted as present. If they're,
But if they're out for medical
Mhm.
reason, it counts it.
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, dentist appointment, those kind of things. And it's a fine balance for us because post-COVID, we don't want to encourage sick kids to come to school. But this is also coming up against us as, a possible area of need in the future. It's a balance.
Okay, English learner progress, and that's REL speaking ESL English as a second language. And then math and the math achievement and the ELA achievement, it takes the performance index in all the math, anybody that takes a math test, breaks it down by demographic, and it's demographics, and then their ethnicity, and then what are the other ones? SWD, English learners, and
What's that?
students with disabilities, sorry. And economically disadvantaged are the three other ones plus. And then I didn't know that you think a subgroup is a smaller part, but all is a subgroup. So all the students. So it's performance index, and once again, each different subgroup by how they did over time. Yeah, there you go. How they did over time is, as you can see, the little red dots. Little red dots are what the goal was, and then the bars are what we did. So it's a different goal for each one of the subgroups, all the way down.
And is all students basically there for comparison purposes?
No, it's a subgroup. That's what I was like. I always thought that was funny that you call all students a subgroup.
Of the states.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. And then
So it exceeded every single goal line.
yes, that's why we had 9 and 9. 9 and 9. Yes, we did
And
very
that
well with this.
4-star.
Yes.
Yeah.
And once again, the goal they have to hit for each one of them will get, for this one, each year gets higher and higher. Okay, and then the last two, math progress and ELA progress, is the value-added part of it. They put them all together, however many points you have, out of however many points you can get is your percentage, and then it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we do well on GAP.
From this, it looks like you were only off 1.5 from 5 stars. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, graduation component, it's its own separate component, like I said. If you get greater, we're at 95.4, and our biggest number of non-graduates, and this is the biggest bunch of bullcrap. Sorry. Are students with disabilities that turn down their diploma, they're called during grade 23, and they're going in Project Life or something. It is something that is good for the kid and should be in, they count as a non-graduate.
So if you have more students, so say in this class you have 5% of those kids are disabilities and they have the right to stay in school to continue to learn life skills and become more independent until 21. That 5% automatically comes off your grade.
Yeah, they count the denominator, not the numerator. They don't count as
I didn't know that.
even though they had a diploma,
And
they just
elected
deferred their diploma
defer, yeah.
until later.
I did not know
Yes.
that.
And
That
so
is
the
fair.
federal law says that students with disabilities can get services up to age 22,
Yes,
but
But that
the
counts
report
as-
card
yeah.
dings us for it.
it's 21 and 364
That's
days.
right,
Yes.
you're right.
Say 22.
Day 22, it's over.
Yeah, when it's 22, it's over. But yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I did not
those,
know that. That's
yeah, those count against you.
Essentially, the
And-
report card contradicts the law.
Yeah.
We have a couple places where that happens. But again, we'll make the decision based on the best needs of the student.
yeah,
Right, yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I have no,
the state on that.
what?
I'm sorry.
Is there a way to challenge the state on
Oh,
It's
Only
been this
put-
way for lots of years,
Yes,
as long as I
it
can
has
remember. And it's been brought up multiple times. but
I brought it up every
You know.
I was gonna say, so, Michael.
I know.
I didn't know that
Anything to
part,
add to
but
that?
I
Yeah.
knew. I didn't know that part, so that's
It's really
Yep.
so if you're in a district that has more kids with disabilities, that can be a negative for you for graduation rate.
Right.
And another thing that kind of, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you're a district that does a great job with helping to connect students with transition opportunities, that therefore leads them to spend more time as a high school student building up those skills, ultimately leading to them having better outcomes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
it impacts you negatively.
Yes.
So it really makes no sense.
Is
Right.
that what, is it written into the law?
Well,
Is there-
it's, as she said, it's federal.
It's federal.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's even harder to.
Yes.
That's federal.
So
The
the
easy
law
thing
that
to do-
allows kids to continue on is federal.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, so is that.
Oh.
When they report to graduation,
Oh, is it?
federal, yes,
Yes.
I don't know.
yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
That's also a
Yes,
federal
it's
graduation
two
rate, that's
conflicting
all.
laws. And it's been brought up. Yeah.
No, I mean, the kids should
They
stay.
should stay if they need to.
They should stay, and it's the best thing for them.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Now, again, that's a small percentage.
It is a
of
small
students,
percentage.
so-
Yes. but it just irks you.
I know, it's just
Whenever
one of
I
those
gotta figure
things
that
that just
out.
doesn't make sense.
And then there's also the kids that moved, we can't find them. We have to withdraw them as they move, but have no idea. If they move out of state, they come off that list. If they move somewhere else in the state. Or if we move them, they say they're going someplace else, and they never show up. We get a request from records, they never enroll, and that. So it's the last school that has it, is what it can. Okay, here's my least favorite one. Early literacy component. There are 3 different parts to it. 2 of them only apply to the 3rd grade, and that's the first 2, the proficiency in 3rd grade and the promotion to 4th grade. Promotion to 4th grade, we're about, what was it, 94, 95, 96%. But that's not including students who are exempt because of special ed or EL, been in the country less than 2 years, right? That's just the raw numbers up without the exemptions. If you put it up there, we're up closer to 98. Because there's very few kids that we didn't promote to 4th grade, and the ones that we didn't are now getting another chance right now, being with the teachers. And
They're
that's
doing like an
happening.
extended school
School year.
year
Oh.
and
And
giving
then you have one more
another
shot.
testing opportunity.
Yes. The state gives us that. And the 3rd one is improving K3 literacy, and that's the one that the K2 buildings, that's most of their grade, well, it's half their grade for the report card. And that is kindergarten students last year took math, they were off track, and there's a number for them to be on or off track. The beginning of this year, they took it again at the end of September. And we're only talking about that group that was off track. If that group, it's the number of kids that are off track that go to on track for each year. So you're talking about this much of the entire group. This much of the entire group that was off track. Let's say it's 20 kids. 20 kids were off track. Let's say, and they were way low. They were, I mean, they're
Right.
coming from kindergarten.
Yeah.
Yes, they know that we put them through a whole year, and then the next year they didn't get on track, but they improved. We look at math shows that they improved from year to year, but if they were off track again, then we don't get credit for that. But it's only that small group, and it's every year. Okay, then that group of kids that were off track next year, how do they do? And so on. And then in 3rd grade, it's the kids that are off, this is the only ones in the same year that are off track in 3rd grade when they start. And they have to then pass the Ohio State, the 3rd grade.
And I apologize, Dan, you're talking about the improving part?
The improving part, the improving K3 literacy. The other, proficiency in 3rd grade reading is the reading sub-score that they get. There's a number they have to hit, and I think it was 47 this year. The reading sub-score, if they were better than the 47, they get for that. And then promotion is obviously getting the math score or the OST score that will move them forward. And that's one, especially through COVID, that they have said, if you think they're good enough, let them go to third grade. And this year was the first year that they said, no, we're going back to the hard line. No. Yes.
Okay.
But all through the COVID and the year after, they were like, which there was a big, I could see in their map score, there was a big decline, which we're still recovering. Okay, and the very last thing, which they're not doing until for another couple of years on the back, and all of those things on the column on the left side, this is just an example of how they would figure out, all the stuff on the, is what they're looking at. Remediation scores on ACT or SAT, received an honors diploma, advanced placement, they get a 3 or better on an advanced placement test, any advanced placement test. 12 points in a state recognized CTE course, and a lot of the kids are using it for graduation, that something called Rise Up, which is if they can't get an algebra and ELA2 score to the right level, they use that as an industry credential, and we also get credit here because it's 12 total points. They enlist in the military, and then the rest of them are more butler tech type of things, apprenticeships and everything else, and some of the stuff that Katie Bauer does with our internships and things like that. Okay. And then Ohio Needs Jobs is a whole other type of things, kids that have a job, and then you have 3 different types of people that sign off. One of them is usually their boss. And there's a whole list of things. They have a Canvas course for kids to do.
So the Katie Bauer stuff real quick, where does that, if they do a internship, does that check one of these?
Yeah, if they do, there's specific
There's criteria that it has
It's
to.
Yeah.
a certain number of hours.
Yeah, there's a certain number of hours that go along with it.
But it's basically saying they want students to have an experience in one of these college, career, workforce, or military areas. So all kids have to have at least one of those experiences. And things like taking a CCP course is one way to get it.
Yeah.
A college credit bearing course. And they have to have at least 12 hours to meet that requirement. So we have a lot of kids who have taken 1 or 2 classes, but maybe not 4 classes, which would get you the 12-hour requirement. So we're doing lots of things like counseling kids on hitting one of these areas. So this is a new thing
Right.
that isn't reported yet, but we're in the process of looking at our data and changing our approach to this. So that we can
And if you hit every one of these, you only can count once. So if you
So
hit,
just one is all you need.
one is all you need.
So, but you need to get so many to graduate now, right?
So it's a little different. No, and our board has not made this a graduation requirement. For this to be a requirement to graduate, they would have to approve that.
Okay.
It's just counts against us on our report card if they don't.
Okay.
So we're looking at ways to, of course, start talking to our freshmen about this and saying, over the course of 4 years, you've got to hit one of these to be able to hit that mark.
Which
So.
is good for them.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. The
Yeah.
goal is that they have some kind of experience in high school that helps them get to this readiness. So,
Okay.
not a bad thing, it's just a new target that we haven't been hitting in the numbers that are now required, if that makes sense. And we've seen things like, related to curriculum, we've seen that we need more CCP options for students so that they can hit that 12-hour mark. So we've been working a lot with our partners in CCP work to add more classes on. But that takes teachers that are certified to do that, and all the, requirements that the university would require on those things. So we're looking at, over the next 5 years, we've talked to Adam about this, increasing our CCP offerings 3-fold at least to help kids have opportunities.
So then when we do the forecast, we make sure that we're increasing that 3 times over the next 5 years so that we're trying to plan for that. So we don't know where it'll end up, but at least Or
I
trying
know
to
it's hard.
project,
Yep.
doing the best we can. Not sleeping over here.
So who tracks these check boxes? Counselors or?
Right.
Yeah, we track them through EMIS. Well, the ones that are like test scores go in the system and that's tracked.
But like, listen to the military, is the military giving you a thing that says,
Yes.
yep, they're
There
in?
is
Yep.
a,
And the pre-apprenticeship is, yep, they're
So-
in, and
The way that we're planning to do this is we've got a new tool called School Links that's gonna replace Naviance, if you're familiar with Naviance. What we're gonna do is tag students once they've met the requirement. So then we can kind of run a report and say who's a senior that hasn't met any of these requirements, so then we know who to focus on, yeah. So it's a new tracking system for us. Right now, it's kind of, counselors generally know this information, but they have 500 students per caseload, so we'd have to have a systematic way to track.
you don't have any idea what the scoring criteria per stars are for this yet.
Yeah, I do, but I don't have it on here.
Okay.
It's in
Is
the,
it right here?
yeah, no, that just gives the percentage.
Oh,
Where
but
is
what
that?
makes the stars?
Yeah, what gives you 5 stars?
Yeah, if you hit that hyperlink on the paper,
Well, then wait, I can do it, can I?
probably.
Is it this one?
Yeah.
Wait, that's not a link.
Oh, no, it's not. Maybe it's
We
not
can,
there.
we can send it out to you.
Yeah.
But we do have we are able to pull the data on how many kids currently hit this. Now, the only error in the data is it could be the same kid hitting multiple categories. So we don't have a way yet, which we will with School Links and the tagging system, to say just the straight number of students that have hit it. We can just look at how many kids have had 12 hours of CCP credit, which a lot of times are the same kids who had scored a 3 or higher on an AP test.
And,
So they could be
remediation
counting
free on-
twice
Okay.
and hit remediation
It's
free on
free.
the ACT. So we've got to figure out a way to kind of map that all out. But that'll be a progression over time. Real simple report card, right?
Thank you, that was good information, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. So again, our hope on this kind of proactive part was just to bring more information to the table so that we can ask questions, have conversation. And all of this is hoping that, as we identify areas that we want to focus on, this is all information that helps you kind of see where we need to. Thank you. Okay. All right, so we're going to jump over to the concern review process. So again, our agendas kind of have that proactive piece, and this is more of the reactive piece. The last time we talked, we showed you a sample of an inquiry form, and you guys gave us a bunch of feedback. I sent the updated one out to you maybe a week after the last meeting with the suggestions that you guys put forward. And then since then, I have shifted that onto, well, let me back up 1 second. When I went and talked to Betsy Fuller about the idea of putting this on our website, she said, well, we already have something on the website that does this. And I said, oh, we do? So she showed me in the Lakota Listens page on our district webpage, there is a curriculum button that's already there. It's been up for about 2 years, and I think we've received 3 responses on it, but none of them were in the last year, so it was the year before.
Okay.
But what I did was took what she had on there and merged it with what we put together. So it's actually live right now if you go to our website and click on that button for Lakota Listens. But what I gave you a handout where I printed it all out. So
So we could share this now, and
it's
not
there.
necessarily now, but yeah.
It's there. So I was kind of wondering if we should have a CCAT or CCAT team page on the website that will link to Lakota Listens and the button that gets you here. We'll talk about the community conversation, we'll promote the thought exchange, whatever it is. We could kind of have a landing place for all our information. But it would point back to the Lakota Listens page where they would click curriculum, or we could link it directly there. So it would be the same sheet no matter where you go, if that makes sense. So if you look through that, I tried to merge what Betsy already had with what we put together. So somebody would go on and put their email address. Then they would mark, what's their relationship to the schools, what building. And then this is one of the things I added because of our question is what date did this happen? And these are all the things that I added from our input. What type of material or situation is of concern? Check all that apply.
Excuse me.
What's the nature of the concern? These were the ones we brainstormed last meeting. And then a place for a description of the actual concern where they can type out. And then what's your name? What's the best way to reach you?
Those are not required, it looks like. Should those be required? They don't have the required asterisk.
But what's your name and what's the best way to reach you?
Oh, yep. Reach you. Oh, and I skipped the page. They're back to back. I apologize. Sorry. So on the back of that, what's the name of the teacher or administrator you've spoken to? Because we talked about that being the first level of action. And when did you speak or correspond? What was the outcome of that? What is your expected? This is a question that Betsy had that I kind of liked. What's your expected outcome? What do you want to happen? And then there's a place for them to upload any evidence if they wanted to give a picture or a worksheet or something. What's your student's name? That would be optional because they may not have a student if they're a community member. But what's your name? And I'll make those required areas.
And it says on here, if you leave this blank, we will not be able to respond to your message.
Right.
So was the idea to allow an anonymous report?
So for all the Lakota listens, they do allow anonymous report, but it is with the caveat that we can't follow up with you if we don't know who
So
you
I don't
are.
know if we would want to make this required, the disclaimers there, right before number 13.
I think if you're going through this whole thing though, you have to put in who you talk to, you should have to put in
Who you are.
who you are.
Yeah,
And honestly, if they
I
put in who they talked to and the date, we could probably figure it out by talking to that person.
I said
But,
it as easy
yeah.
as possible and just say, if you're gonna fill it out, tell us who you are.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And so there's a way for them to put documentation. It asked all the questions that we put together last meeting. I just wanted to ask if you guys felt like this was okay, or if there's anything you... now, Diane, you did email me a feedback point about, I'm trying to think of what you said, but you said, is there a place that we need to say going too far, I think was the words you used. Do you remember this?
I'll find it. Let me go find it.
It was maybe another type of concern under the number 5 or number 6, yeah, either of those.
I sent it to you, didn't
You did. It just said, should we have one for going too far? And did we want to use that language, or whether that would fit under 5 or 6? You made a comment on the actual document if you're. And then the other one you asked you put email address, and that will be captured. So I got that one that you added there.
So Lauren, my only suggestion, if we do make these required, number 13, 14, 15, then we would want to take off
Disclaimer.
2 sentences before 13.
You said we weren't gonna make 13 required in case it was,
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
but
no.
14 and 15.
yeah, 14, 15.
So I'll just remove that note, period, right?
Okay, so you're saying you're moving, what is your name and what is the best way to reach out to you?
So what we're saying is before number 13, there's that little note that says to get a personalized response. We're going to take that out because we are requiring that they put their name.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So
just making
student
sure.
name will be optional, but your name and the best way to contact you will be required.
Okay.
That makes sense? Any other feedback or suggestions? Like I said, I adjusted it in live, so it's on the website right now under Lakota Listens, but we could cross-reference that link to a page that's about this committee.
Can I make one?
Yep.
I was gonna say, because some people are impatient, should you put it will take 10 to 14 business days or 14?
To respond.
To respond, so somebody doesn't send it tonight and think they're supposed to get a response
Right.
tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good.
We'll
Yeah.
say expectation of response.
You know, it will take whatever, I don't know how many days it takes you guys, even if it's a
Yeah.
preliminary response to say, we got it, we're working.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, well, I've got it set up right now that it will alert me through my email if somebody puts something in, so I'll know right away. I think we could probably respond within 24 hours, just at least to say we got.
But what if you're on
concern.
vacation?
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to, the
Let's
other
say
thing
you-
is we have it set up for a couple different people.
Okay,
So
okay,
like
well,
Betsy gets
yeah.
an alert, I get an alert. But yeah, I'll put something reasonable in there.
And people be happy if you take 7 to 10 business days. You
Mhm.
get a response in 24 hours, that's like, good.
Yeah.
They're on it, yeah.
Yeah.
I think question 15 should probably just be phone, because question 1 is a required email.
Okay. Good point.
Is there, I noticed that, the second paragraph on the front says a reminder that you should speak to a teacher or building administrator. Here's how you can get their information.
Mhm.
There's 2 questions asking who you spoke to. Well, 3, when and what'd you talk about? And then at the very end, before the submit button, there's also another, please speak to a teacher or administrator before submitting this form. Was the thought process just we want to make sure no one misses that?
I think that's what the thought process was.
Okay.
To say, you really sure,
Yeah.
because they don't, it could be solved in the quickest way possible, right at the point of the issue, yeah. That would be the hope.
So on the back side of the form you gave us last time is Lakota's response to inquiry.
Yeah, we haven't done anything, that wouldn't be part of the Google form. That would
Right,
be
but
more
I think it
what
would go
we-
into the, how long does it take to get back to someone?
Yeah. Meaning put that on there, is that what you're saying?
No, like to her question, how long will it take the Lakota
Now to
staff
get
to
that,
get
that
from
would be
that?
like the 7 to 10 days thing, I think, at least. Because that might require some research, it
Yeah,
might
but I'm
require
talking to the teacher.
interviewing, yeah, that kind of stuff. So I can put that on there, like an explanation of.
I think to answer my own question, it seems that number 7 probably should cover the details and that we don't necessarily need to have click boxes that
For all,
indicate all of that unless we start finding that the information isn't
Detailed
there,
enough,
isn't like,
or-
oh, they're not telling us who or what. But
Mhm.
I think this should be fine, actually,
Okay.
based on my prior question.
Oh, I see what you're saying, they could
Yeah.
explain,
They could explain
What that
it
was,
other than clicking the box, like, well, I
Mhm.
just clicked that box, why do I have to explain it?
yeah,
I just answered my own question.
okay.
Will they get a copy of this form
We can
automatically?
make that, I'll double check that that's clicked on, but yes, we can do that.
I think that would be really helpful, so that people then have a copy of what they've submitted for their own references.
I have a suggestion for all of our consideration, but since we're blasting this message, please speak to a teacher, administrator, tell us who it was and what you talked about, and at the very end again, would it be easier, and Lori, I don't know if this can be a dynamic form, but would it be easier just to have a question right up front, have you spoken to a teacher or administrator? And if you click no, then just give them, here's how you can do that, you're gonna need to do that first
Yeah.
before you fill out this
Yeah.
form.
Yep.
And not even bring them to the form until they can say yes to that question.
That's it.
Okay, so make that question.
It's kind of a gateway question.
Yeah,
question.
that's number 8. Oh, no,
Uh-huh.
it's not, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Well, 8, 9, and 10 give
Yeah.
information about it, but it'd be nice just to have it as
Just
a
to have that question
like
before it
then.
opens up the entire piece for them.
Mhm.
so that if they say no, it will branch to the reminder.
In the
Yeah,
directory or
like
something.
What you already have
Yeah.
there, yeah.
You only get the full form if you say yes.
Yeah.
Then they figure that
How
out.
about saying they're gonna figure it out?
If
We start
yes.
getting the yeses. Let's see how long that takes. Oh, boy.
So just to be, do we want that after email address? And before we ask the relationship, or do you think it's after relationship and building?
I would probably put
I
that
would
before
put it
that.
even
stuff.
before that,
Yeah.
before
Yeah.
you even
Yeah.
ask.
Okay, so number one,
It makes it a gateway.
okay,
This is, yeah,
okay.
it's a great idea.
Yeah, I can
just
do
think-
that.
I
Reach
thought
out
about
to the
for-
teacher, and if you're having problems, maybe reach out to the building principal, and then
Mhm.
Right.
go from there.
Right. Like
Yeah.
when I was thinking about when we have applications for our programs at Butler Tech, we often have a question up front. Are you this? Are you on track for? And if you say no, you can't even get to the application because that's a pre-requirement. Prerequisite.
Just making sure I capture that.
So you said no responses to the form that was on there in the last year, 3 the year prior. In the last year, people were just emailing somebody about their concerns.
Or taking it to the board is my guess.
Yes, or Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those are the ways that we found out.
So will this be something that's specifically promoted to the community then?
That's what I'm hoping like the page would do. And then my hope is that like if something was posted on Facebook, someone could say, fill out this form and get that checked out, or, you know.
What about, I mean, I don't know if you even want to get into this, like a generic Facebook page as far as the curriculum team, is that too much? No?
I mean, we could post it on Lakota's
Oh, yeah.
page and
Okay. Just so
promote
that
it that
people
way,
know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that could be something that goes out in like just a general
A blast.
district
Yeah.
Mhm.
email.
And I just wanted to make sure we're all good with, and what I can do is make these changes. I'll send you the link and you can run it through and see what you. And then the process discussion was just basically, how do you guys feel about having a place on the website, a page that was kind of, this is our thought exchange and here's the results and this is the community conversation and what it is.
I think it's easier, because it's got a very large website to begin with, I think the easier it makes it for people to find
The better.
concise information.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Make what page? And usually, I think the easiest way to find is to either have the button on the front page or make the website like go online / CCAT or something that's just easy to remember,
Mhm.
easy to type in. I'll talk to Betsy about that.
I have a general question, to kind of summarize this whole thing. Is there I like one pagers because they're really easy to distill information, of kind of curriculum topics by grade. So if I want to see, my kid's going into 3rd grade, what are the things on the curriculum my kid's going to learn this year?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know what grade it is, but like Ohio history from X year to this year, or we're going to do U.S. history from this year to this year, and then
But
So, go ahead. No, you
I was
go
about to
ahead.
say, when he did the drop-down box, that was all the topics that he did at the last meeting, when he clicked on it, and then the state standards, and then the content, and
a lot of that
then
was
week by
a
week.
lot of stuff.
That's all the stuff they're gonna
Well,
cover.
that's what I was gonna say, that, I mean,
That's
it is hard to put that on a one-pager
Yeah.
because of the amount of standards that are aligned to each grade level and content area. So normally, we would point parents to the standard statements to say, this is the list of the standards. And sometimes that's, 20 pages or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But if you're just looking for like a
Like your kids going to learn how to do
Topic, like a
addition,
theme.
subtraction this year, and next year they're going to learn to do.
mhm. And most things aren't as simple as that
Mhm.
because there's elements of addition and subtraction in multiple years of math education. So it's addition and subtraction in this way with this amount of numbers, with this amount of variables, those are kind of things. He's a math teacher, so you can.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
So I hear what you're saying. It would be something new we would have to create, but also it would be very broad.
It might,
And I don't know if that's helpful or not,
but it
but
might just say U.S. history, but it's not gonna say exactly what, I'm using an example, so if you said U.S. history, you're not gonna be able to capture their 200 different things that are gonna be covered in US history.
And I get that, but you could then link to like the 30-page document if people want to go.
So the other thing is, I don't know if you remember Christina French showing you like the scope and sequence of a year for like 4th grade, where you could look at ELA and generally know like the units that are going on throughout the year in each content area. Is
I'm
that?
trying to figure out how to make it, is people have complaints for the age appropriate or whatever box on here, how do they know like, this is what my kid should be learning versus,
What's presented in class?
yeah, I mean, how do they know that it's age appropriate or not? Or how are we telling them these are the things your kids should be learning this year as part of their curriculum? Yes, you get curriculum night is a very, very high level of what
Right,
you're going to do throughout the year.
right. I don't know, does anyone have suggestions about how to make that more simple, I guess, and easy to digest than the big
document
documents?
too. I know, I'm not really sure either.
I
think there's
There's a lot to teach during the school
Yeah.
year, so.
I don't want to oversimplify it, but also
Yeah.
if there's an easy way for someone to
To just
fairly
look at-
quickly
yeah.
distill.
Well, I do think there's an element of this form that's subjective anyway. I mean, even if what they were claiming was not age appropriate falls right there on the scope and sequence, they may still feel for some reason it's not age appropriate in their opinion.
That's
So I don't,
Yeah.
They could, but I'm thinking too, as you get into more community conversations, or as people are doing thought exchanges, if they want to find out. I mean, we just spent a whole meeting last time going through what is curriculum.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Your general community member is going to be like, I don't know what the heck curriculum is
Yeah.
supposed to be anyway. So, so where do I know my kids are going to go to school and they're going to learn something? But
That's it, that's it.
Well.
how do we make it easier for them?
In that sense, I mean, we could put something on like the CCAT page that explains like what is curriculum and where to find things, or it's just an overview of.
The more we can have common definitions and common outlines on stuff, I think it's easier for people to have conversations about those things. Because scope and sequence is the details, but that's very
Yeah.
minutia for I think, the community at large.
I think what you're asking for is like a syllabus.
That's a great word to use. Yeah.
Is what?
Yeah.
A syllabus.
So we do have a course of study for each course that kind of gives a brief overview, like 712. K6 would look a little different, but 712, if you go to Algebra 1 and click on it, there's like a short description of what's covered in Algebra 1. Is it something like that?
I think that's good. I don't know what a 7th grader is supposed to learn. I haven't made it that far yet. It's been a while since I was in 7th grade.
Right.
I have no idea.
Everything's different now.
What is the 7th grader supposed to learn this year without going through?
It might be like I'm looking at the I can statements, I'm looking at the content statements, and then again, what you just said, Lori, was the
Scope and sequence.
scope and sequence. I mean, maybe kind of cut and paste or something, those items together might help parents. I don't know.
I agree, I think it, scope and sequence, do we have a link to any of that, or was that something that we didn't have?
I gave you the example of 4th grade or
Right.
whatever it was, but not a link.
Not a link, okay.
So that's one, when you get into those documents, we could give just the broad scope and sequence, but it's links within links within links within links.
I think
Right.
that's more than a lot of people even need to get into.
Yeah,
I mean, even this is. I
Right.
mean, you'd have to want to go very deep to just. I
So
think you
we
get
have
to that
like these
level.
1-pagers on every 712 course.
and could we link on that? Okay.
So here's like, this is our internal document, but you can see the ones in red still need to be finalized. So that, and these are the ones that are complete. So we
That
could,
might be, I mean, that's if you just got.
the
grade
goal
bands
of that
for
was
you.
to put that all online
Yeah.
for public consumption, to have it all.
That would solve.
it's a work in
So-
progress.
Right.
Yeah, but the goal is that this would be up by fall, that we would have that, all those done. And I think we would probably link to this document and just let people click into the course that they want and see that description.
Even that's better than,
Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
because I could look this up before you go to curriculum, I potentially as a parent
Yeah.
and say, Like, I want
to
to know
know
more
what
about
questions
this.
to
Yeah.
have.
Right.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay.
What percentage of parents go to curriculum in general?
I would say, in my experience as a teacher, it was about half of your, but I don't
And
know.
that goes down as the years go up.
Yeah.
Yeah. High school, less and
High
less.
school, less and less, yes.
Elementary, more. I don't know if we have a good percentage.
Kindergarten, all.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just curious.
And I mean, in general, when we've done things like surveys, I think if we survey parents, our results are always kind of low. I mean, we don't get more than maybe 30% of our parents responding, and that would be really good. So that's a challenge too, is
Question, when you did curriculum night over Zoom during COVID, did more parents show up though?
I believe we had more parents access, even if they were camera off and doing something else,
I was
there
wondering
were
about
some.
that, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So that's a possibility too. And
Just
conferences
asking,
and things like
curiosity.
that have been successful being online and through a Zoom than coming face to face. A lot of like IEP meetings, 504 meetings are happening that way. It's just more accessible, easy to access.
How many people are working on this project right now, Lori, to get the
So-
pink, yellow?
This is the work of, well, it's coordinated by Andrew Wheatley, who was here last time, and he has 2 assistant directors, Justin Frost and Justin Wilson. They're coordinating it, they built the template, and but a lot of it is the teachers, like the department. So the math department would sit down and create for the different math courses at East and West. So that's something we kind of triggered in a couple months ago, just to have something available. So, but they'll all follow the same format and amount of information. They're all one-pagers.
So, because I could go to a curriculum night, figure out my kid's in this class,
Yeah,
this class, or course, you know.
and see it.
And then I could go and.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? That concludes our agenda part. The only other thing we need to decide is our next meeting date, which it looks like we were kind of thinking late August, so that we would have thought exchange information back. And then we could also do like the first week of September if we wanted to do that. I know picking dates was tough this time, so I think the further out we are, the better. So if anyone, do you want me to do a doodle again and throw out some dates?
As long as I don't forget to answer it.
I'll call you.
Yeah.
So do you want me to doodle the last week of August and first week of September and see what hits for availability?
I also think it might be helpful, this is the second time we've met, if we plan for 90
Multiple.
minutes instead of 30. I don't know if that's correct or not, but first meeting was about 90, this was a little over 90. I realized we've had a lot of questions, we've had a lot of information that we're getting.
I would
I
almost
mean-
go 2 hours if
Yeah.
we're only meeting every other month.
Exactly,
I'd just say 2 hours.
I've always thought 2 hours. Did I say that?
Oh, I
I
thought it
counted
said-
that it was
I'm
only an
okay
hour.
with that too.
Oh, did
Oh,
it
was
say
it?
that? Maybe I was wrong, sorry.
I think the first one I did 2 hours, the second
first
one I
one you
did, I don't know.
That was
Yeah,
my
I make that
mistake.
word.
I apologize.
I didn't eat dinner because of
I'm
this.
sorry. I'm sorry. I'll buy you dinner.
Your bologna sandwich is there, waiting for you.
Yeah, oh, this was 90.
So make them all 2 hours.
To me, that just,
can get
sorry about
Two
that.
There's the answer to
hours.
your question.
So like 6 to 8 p.m.
6 to 8?
Okay.
I think that's good too, at least it
Nailed it.
Yeah.
may have just been the way I
Because it
got
is
my
an issue.
schedule.
I mean,
I
yeah,
know,
just
that's
assumed
what-
it
that's a lot of
would be,
things to potentially
Yeah,
check out
I
the
did.
box.
Yeah, I did too.
Other than the last
Yeah.
3 weeks of school, having all the recruiters from the military come in and say, oh, you didn't get any of these checked off? Sign up.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll send out a doodle with the last week of August, first week of September, 2 hours, 6 to 8 p.m. I'll probably send you the Monday through Thursday for both of those.
What's the date? August what?
28 through,
Well, I'm gonna send out a doodle to see what they're available.
Oh, okay, so we
Yeah.
won't put that in.
I won't know
All
just
right.
yet, but I'll know soon.
Okay.
So I'll do that for like the Monday through Thursday, and see if we can get everybody's availability there.
And then does everybody on the group want to be on the public notice? Do we have an email listserv for this group?
I don't think so. Did you guys receive it? They probably didn't.
Probably don't, but I mean, I could add everybody to it if necessary, but we notice these out, so if we
I
do
mean, you
one
have
at a
notice from
time,
me, but if you wanted to see the
then we don't
official-
have to notice a change. Some of those get to be a little wild.
I'm fine
I'm
with,
okay.
I'm fine
Yeah,
with whatever
there's
makes
easier
it
for you
easiest.
all.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we could have to just put an email together, then I do that, I could attach them all
Okay.
as well. So- But it'll be based around what you guys decide.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Is it possible to get digital copies of all the stuff that's printed as well?
Yes, so you have the agenda, you have a digital copy of the inquiry form, and I have the other handouts digital, and I can email them to you.
Okay. Do you have this digitally?
It's linked on the, if you go to this agenda, it's
Okay,
linked.
I saw the form, and then I would have to fill out the form.
Yeah, so that's the back end side, like the collaborator
So
side,
to
so
see
I
it in
printed
real
it so
time,
you
we
can
have
see
to
the whole
like go
thing.
through it every time.
Yes, or
Okay.
ask me to print, or send you like a PDF of the newer version. But when I do the updates, I'll do it in that view and email it that way, so that you don't have to fill it out.
Otherwise, you're gonna get a bunch of
Yeah.
text emails.
Yeah, test.
I sent the test.
Okay. Any other questions, areas of discussion?
This is great.
Yeah,
Does
thank
this
you.
meet what your needs were for the?
Yeah, I've got action steps on multiple things, so,
Thank you.
thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
So, are we required to report back to the board, or do you guys report back to the
So
board?
I've been giving updates to Rob Vogelman, and you actually gave the update last time, didn't you? I sent Rob an update, but Adam actually gave it because he was sitting here in the meeting,
Yeah.
so he could give the update. So between the two of them, we will update that way, and then they share it at the board meeting. So it's listed as a committee, like all the other committees, and if we haven't met, they'll say, didn't meet this month, or they'll give the update. So it'll be at every board meeting, right? Committee updates are at every board meeting.
I would love to see somebody come up and do the presentation, but I can't
We
recommend that.
could do
I can't.
that. You know, and maybe
It's the
when
board
we're,
meeting online, so.
maybe when we're advertising the community conversation, we
Do some.
do like a little update that way.
Because at that last one, I felt like everybody's kind of looking at each other like, who's about this? And I'm like,
And yeah, and any of you are welcome to come to those or speak on our group's behalf, anything you would like. So,
And
No,
you know,
but I'm happy
something
to
that
do it
could
too.
help too is that once we get these minutes finalized, I could share those out to the board. That way they could kind of see
Oh,
what
yeah.
was in the minutes and what went over.
So the
if
board
they wanted
members
to
have feedback too on what they'd like to see
Sure.
this community do
Absolutely.
differently.
mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would assume that everybody's kind of keeping who appointed you to the group, maybe updated as we go. Yeah. I think that's helpful.
My deep breath is, we are learning a lot, and I just think, how do we get even some of this learning back to the community, even just how the statistics are reported, the difference, and we talked about that tonight, the difference between instruction and curriculum, how those work together, the interactiveness of it. This page that's being created for the convenience, of the parents, how to use that, these types of things, it's we're learning, and how can that move into the
That's a
community?
great question.
I know, I read a lot of the report stuff because years ago I was interested in it. So I see like the performance child to child, I couldn't remember, but I was like, I think I remember something like it's low, but I couldn't remember all the ins and outs, and he explained it last time. But my head was churning and thinking, you were thinking like, maybe they could do Zoom presentations once a year on the report card, and that's just an update. I wouldn't put that in your lap, but somebody can do it. But it's not like a question answer, but here's our update, and this is how these numbers are calculated. Because I think people see numbers, but they don't understand how those stars or numbers or
They see the
metrics
stars and go in.
are generated. Like when they saw the 2, I'm like, that was years ago, and I was like, okay, I have to go and figure out, because this is not making sense. So I went and researched and went to the Ohio Board of Education, and I'm like, my husband's like, stop looking at this. I'm right after that. But I think like even giving a once-a-year update, because I think right now people are just circulating, this is what I think, this is what I think. They're not gonna go look for what it really is. And
Or
then
know how complex it is.
or know how complex it is and what goes into it.
Mhm.
And that would be helpful, and I think that will kind of calm some people's nerves and also just educate everybody,
Yeah.
because we don't know everything. It's a lot.
Well, and Regina, you brought up something earlier about, and asked the question or made the statement about, was there higher attendance in the curriculum meetings when they were on Zoom? And I think, while we're not in that season anymore, that practice seemed to be a practice that got participation. Why would that stop when, when it was yielding some good fruit? Even if it was 2 separate events. Again, that's a lot on the teacher, but still having, even if it's the same event, and you just open a Zoom so that parents can still, yes, a thought, especially in this era where people are working from home, people are on Teams, people are doing Zoom, getting information that way is a way to improve and increase communication and education to. Good question.
Proactive piece of everything is like what would be good community education.
Right. That's good next agenda item for,
And is it past our scope of whatever, but it's.
Don't want to create more work.
Right.
exactly. I mean, but it is
More
it is the
work.
work, to communicate and have that transparency and have everyone on the same page is what we strive for, so.
60 minutes with Dan on a Zoom would go a long way.
Well, where Betsy's even talked to me about doing the House Bill 920 with the tax increase, so we may see whatever that turns out to be. They have it'll draw, and they've done it with like a student reading it so that it sounds simplified. And she's talked to me about putting something like that together on the tax side. Maybe if we could figure out a way of doing that on the report card side. I think sometimes when it sounds like a 2nd grade kid reading it, it seems easier to understand.
It makes it cute too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're more engaged
Because
than if it was an
These
adult.
things are a bit complicated. So.
Right.
Julie Schaefer used to do that before she got in on the school board, doing the 4 moms and a PowerPoint. Long time ago,
Really?
on school funding and.
Yeah, I like the visuals too, if they're doing like a whiteboard thing.
Yeah,
'Cause
I
if
do
not, we
agree,
just
those
put
are
everybody to sleep.
engaging.
It's like
Little
talking
light
about
ones, yeah.
Tried to do a forecast without numbers,
yeah.
so it's not as boring. But anything else? I can throw something else out there. We've had, if anybody would like to hear a little bit of an update on our superintendent search. I don't know if that's something anybody wants to hear. Sure. The 2nd round interviews will be on the 27th, and this group, they're sending out invites. They're having 3 rooms, so they're going to do like an admin invite room, which would be people that do like the committee work and different things so that they can meet all the candidates. And then there will be a community and staff room where everybody else, if they chose to come, could come, and then there will be a final round where then the candidate would go and interview with the board. So if you haven't received the invite yet, this group, when we were doing the planning, will be getting an invite to that. So that will be on the 27th starting. I want to say that it's going to start a bit early, but I don't know the time. It might be closer to the 3:30.
You're saying
you're
early,
looking
I'm
at
thinking
that.
7 o'clock.
Early.
I'm not kidding.
Earlier,
I'm
like,
oh,
early afternoon, early evening.
Isn't that
Late
funny?
afternoon, early evening.
The email says 3:30 to 6 for the general public.
Okay. So, yeah, that will be coming up then.
And that's
So,
the 27th of this month?
yes.
That's funny.
So a week from tomorrow,
Thank you.
so that everybody can give a little bit of feedback and see what they think.
And there's 5.
Is it, it's not here, is it?
No, it will be at West. They're going to-
Parking lot is not going to be
Yeah.
available.
Yeah, no, yeah, they'll have it at West.
How many candidates? There's 5.
There was 4, and then after today, we have 3. So 1 did drop.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, thanks
So-
for the.
That's a lot of work. They have, that's, I'm actually amazed
Good
at
morning.
the school board.
Mhm.
No, it has been,
I did have an idea.
I didn't
I've done
anticipate,
searches.
I didn't anticipate the amount of time it was going to take from me. Because I was able to do, this is why I've been like typing. I'm in fiscal year end right now. And I was able to work on Monday. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, all day Thursday, all day Friday was completely someone or groups of people in my office
Yeah.
working through the logistics, the planning, and I'm going to the point I can say, well, if I get frustrated, it's not about you guys.
Right.
I'm not like, but I'm in June and I'm like losing my mind right now
It's crazy, it's crazy.
because we have the big financial meeting on the 29th this month. that
It's
I have
impressive.
all of my stuff done for.
That's a lot.
Thank goodness we have.
We better move to adjourn.
Yeah.
Okay, good point, Diane.
I'll second if you're.
I'll move to adjourn.
All right, I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you for that update.
Okay, so Dr. Wider,
Yes.
Mr. Albright,
Yes.
Ms. Brown, Ms. McCall,
Yes.
Mr. Murray,
Yes.
Ms. Wells.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Wow.
I didn't know if that's been communicated because I've been in so many different communications that's
Yeah.
making my
What
brain
do it?
think.
No, that's just like last time,
Yeah.
to go back